here are the potatoes that we harvested.
I once was lost, oh, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Welcome everybody to Built on Faith Homestead. Today is an important day. Today is potato harvest. We're gonna tear down the potato tower. I got some burlap sacks off Amazon. Hopefully I bought enough, and hopefully I didn't buy way too much, if you know, catch my drift. If you guys will remember, we did our potato tower and tried it that way. My plants are pretty much dying off. There's still like a couple live and well, but the rest of them's all pretty well dying off. And so I'm gonna go ahead and harvest the potatoes today and see what we get. I have no idea how much we plan on. I have no idea how much to plan on getting. I don't have a clue. But I put a 50-pound feed sack of seed potatoes in there. Let's see what we get out of it. There's already some things I know that might have been wrong, right? Very, very hot, very, very dry. Very, very hot, very, very dry, very, very hot, and very, very dry, and very, very hot, and very, very dry. Also, like, I don't know, could have been planted too densely, too close together. Maybe they didn't migrate towards the middle like I wanted them to. I have no idea, but it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna go ahead and harvest them. Maybe a little early, maybe a little late. I have no idea. We're just gonna try it. I also got a scale and we're gonna weigh them, see how much we got off of our 50-pound feed sack of potatoes. If we get over 50 pounds, I'm gonna be really excited, but we will see. We'll see what happens. Excuse the mess. We've had a couple little projects going on out here, but here's the little scale I bought. I'm gonna hang the burlap sacks on it, and you can see that little black indicator moves. That'll tell us about how many pounds each sack is weighing. We'll weigh them up and we'll see what we're getting, and I'll show you the sacks too. Here are the sacks that I bought. They're not very big, and I did that on purpose because we don't eat a lot of potatoes. If you guys will watch the tiny house talk when we talked about PCOS, we can't eat a whole lot of potatoes. We can have a few, but not a bunch. So this sack right here will last us quite a while. And so I got 20 of them. So we'll see if we bought way too many or not near enough. Stick along with us and we'll see what happens today. It is extra fun for me today because, like, no matter what happens, I'm not counting today as a failure. And the reason why is this is something new and something we wanted to try. And maybe it doesn't work, maybe it works great, who knows? But really, it's an experiment. It was something we wanted to try. And so even if we don't, let's say we only get, I don't know, 3 sacks of these taters, right? Then we look at it and go, you know what? That didn't work. That's not failing. I wouldn't call that failing at all. What I would call that is learning and just saying, hey, that didn't work whatsoever. Let's try something else next year. Let me show you guys what it looks like. Here's what I mean by the plants dying off. There's still a couple like that one that's looking pretty good, but for the most part, plants are yellowing, dying off. Man, we're watering every day and it's just so hot and dry. They may just be dying off from being dry, but it is right about the time that they should be harvested anyway. This is about what I expect for this time of year, for the end of July with them. And so I really think it is time to harvest them. I don't think they're just dying from the drought because, like I said, we're watering almost every day or every other day anyway. So this is why, if you'll remember, we tied these up. Not, because watch this. Pull that string. Done. Done, done, done. But we'll get to harvesting, see what we got here. If you guys will remember, I just wired this cattle panel shut in a few places up here. Like, I can already tell you something I'll do different next year. I won't face it towards the dill because I'm going to be smelling like dill by the time this is done, which isn't the end of the world. I probably smell worse than that. I'll definitely smell worse than that by the time it's done. It's so hot out here. But I'm gonna have to fight the dill a little bit to clip that wire so I can get in here and get to these potatoes. But anyhow, let's see what happens. feel like I'm opening up a food Christmas gift or birthday gift here. All right, so all I did was spread it apart, and you can already tell right there's some potatoes that come off whenever I spread it apart. But anyhow, some little bitty ones, some bigger ones. We'll just see what happens. These are red potatoes, so I'm just going to wipe the dirt off of them good. I'm not going to hard them off or anything like that. And we are going to be storing them in my mother-in-law's basement, mother and father-in-law's basement, for as long as they'll keep anyway. So, here we go. All right, guys. So, sorry, flies are terrible. There's the potato tower cattle panel. I need to take all the rope and plants off of it. And this is my pile of dirt / rotten potatoes I come across. Here's where the potato tower was sitting. I did use the shovel a little bit on the very bottom just to, if any of you guys ever grown potatoes know, this was just hard, bare dirt whenever I put everything down. But of course, there were a few that kind of made their way down in there, so I dug a few of them up. Here are the potatoes that we harvested, which is not very many, or not near as many as it should be. And let me explain to you why. So, why is there not as many potatoes there? Not nearly as many as I thought there would be. This isn't my first time growing potatoes. I've done them a bunch of different ways. Some more successful, some actually less successful, believe it or not. But here's what I did wrong, right? And I know what I did wrong, no doubt in my mind. I overwatered these potatoes. With that hay, it really held water like real well. Like I haven't watered them in about 5 days because I knew I was getting ready to harvest them. And there was still a ton of moisture in the hay and in the dirt. And that's the reason why I had to set them out in the sun for a while, let them dry good. There was a bunch of mold and rotten potatoes in the center of that potato tower. What you're seeing came off of the edges and the two ends where the sprinkler wasn't really hitting it whenever it was watering it. Not hitting it a lot. It was hitting it, but not very heavily. So, lesson learned. And after we get done weighing the potatoes, we'll sit down in the shade and we'll talk about what we can do to improve this next year. Do I think this is failure? Not particularly, and we'll explain that here in a little bit. All right, guys, so here's our sacks. We were able to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 6 1/4 maybe sacks out of here. We're gonna weigh these sacks, weigh them up. We'll see about how much we've got here. Now, I didn't weigh the sacks. If you want a real precise measurement, I did not weigh the sacks without any potatoes in them, but I can tell you they're really light. Just a burlap sack. That sack, get everything steady here. Here is the pounds. So we're, I'd say 11 pounds on that one. That one too. Right at, I'd say 11 pounds for that sack. So for you math whizzes, we've got what? 22 pounds. I'm gonna set the phone down. We'll measure the rest of the sacks and we'll go from there. All right, y'all. Sit in the shade a little bit here. So we were able to get right about 70 pounds of potatoes out of our 50-pound seed potatoes that we planted with our potato tower. Remember, I told you guys we did something similar to that when I was really young, living in Decaturville. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what I noticed whenever I was taking that potato tower apart. First thing I noticed was the potatoes were extremely easy to harvest, which was nice. Second thing I noticed was a lot of mold and a lot of rotten and gooey potatoes in the middle of the potato tower. The edges of the potato tower is where I got probably, I don't know, I got a lot of them. I'd say 90% of my potatoes came off the two ends of the potato tower where I was not getting many potatoes. Or where I was not getting much water as the sprinkler was going across. Literally in an area about the size of a 5-gallon, maybe like a 5-gallon bucket and a half worth of material. I got like a 5-gallon bucket of potatoes in an area where it wasn't getting as much water. I was worried because it got so hot and so dry. I was watering that every day or every other day just about. And I probably should have stretched those waterings out, not thinking about how much water that hay was actually holding. I haven't watered those potatoes in 4 or 5 days because I knew I was going to harvest them and I wanted it dry. And I still had moisture in the middle of that potato tower. And I had ooey gooey rotten potatoes in there. I lost maybe a handful of potatoes that were soft, right? Squishy potatoes, a couple of them that were ate up by critters, bugs, or whatever. But I think as much rotten and like decomposed potatoes as I came across, I think that potato tower actually was very successful. I just think I did it wrong. I think the tower wasn't the problem, it was the operator that had issues. I think had I watered it properly, I'd probably be looking at, man, I don't know, probably 400 or 500 pounds of potatoes pretty easy. Because the thing was chock full of just decomposed and rotten potatoes, because like I said, I think I just watered it way too much and rotted those potatoes out. So am I going to do this again, or would I consider this a success? Yes, I said anything over 50 pounds I was going to be pretty happy with, because I did not like the idea of planting 50 pounds of potatoes and then not even getting 50 pounds back, right? So anything over 50 pounds I was pretty happy with. We got over 50. We're at like 70 pounds of potatoes. That 70 pounds of potatoes is going to last us a long time. Plus, we're going to put some in some green beans and stuff, because we can't eat a whole lot of potatoes, especially the way we kind of do our eating habits, right, is we kind of eat what we want to on the weekends, but we try to be a little stricter during the week. Am I going to grow potatoes like that again? Yes and no. Yes, I'm going to do a very similar potato tower again. Yes, I plan on wrapping a cattle panel in a circle, doing some sort of hay or straw mixture, a dirt mixture. I may change up my mixture some. I may think about using maybe different materials. So here's one thing to think about, right? It's like, okay, well, just use the same materials, because it obviously worked in areas that wasn't so wet. Just use the same materials and don't water it as much, which isn't a bad idea and not a bad plan. The only problem I have with that plan is this. What if we get a bunch of rain next year? So this year we had a bunch of rain at the beginning of the year, and then it's just like the faucet got turned off, and we haven't had any substantial rain now, and I don't even remember when. Everything's dry and crunchy, and the only thing green's the garden because we're watering it, right? So is it a good idea to put the same exact materials back? I don't know. Maybe not. I'm worried about if we get too much rain, right? If I will have the same issue the next time. What I did do was I piled up all of that hay and dirt and all of that. There's a bunch of bugs in there. The chickens will pick it all apart and get a bunch of bugs out of it. But I'm just going to let it decompose, and it's going to be like my topsoil type stuff that I'm going to use into it next year with new hay or new straw in there. But yeah, I'll absolutely do it again. I'm going to tell you this. For ease of planting potatoes and ease of harvesting potatoes, I would take less potatoes because it just makes it really, really easy. However, the ultimate goal is to grow potatoes, something for us to eat. It's kind of like if you ask somebody that went fishing, like, hey, did you catch any fish? And they're like, well, I had a really good time. It's like, that's not what I asked. Did you catch any fish? Were we able to grow potatoes? Yeah. Was it a lot of potatoes? No. Am I real happy with the amount of potatoes we got? Not really, especially since one of the areas I started in was one of those dry areas where, man, I was filling up that bucket. Like, I didn't hardly make any room into that potato tower, and I had the bucket full of potatoes, and I was like, oh man, we are going to have potatoes coming out our ears. And then as I worked into that potato tower where all that moisture had held, man, I just didn't have anything but rotten, nasty potatoes. So, I will absolutely do it again. I will just do it differently. I'm not giving up on it. I don't think it's wise to give up on it. I think it's a good concept. It just needs some fine tuning. The problem with fine tuning your gardening concepts is it's not like fine tuning a vehicle, right? Where you can like start it. Nah, I don't like that. Shut it back off. Adjust it. Start it. Nah, I don't like that. Adjust. Right? That's not the way gardening works. You have to really keep track of it year to year. Figure out what works good for you and what doesn't. It'll be next year before I try it again. And next year I might mess it up worse. We may not get as many potatoes as we did, or we may really hit it well and have all kinds of potatoes. You just never know. But I would absolutely do it again. Would I recommend other people do it? Yes and no. I like the idea, and I think the idea is a good one. I don't have enough confidence yet in my ability to describe how to do it so that they can really get a bumper crop of potatoes, right? So, would I advise against it? No. Would I try to convince somebody this is the best way to grow potatoes? Probably not yet, right? Coming, but not yet. Would I, if somebody was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, would I say go for it? Absolutely. I would tell them my mistakes though, and I would say this is what I did. This is how much potatoes I got, and this is what happened. This is what I observed. And so, just to warn you, right? Like you may think about these things. However, I count it. I'm gonna count it as a success. I told you guys today, and it wasn't me just trying to make an excuse or whatever. Today I knew, right? No failure today. It is not going to be a failure, even if we only got 10 pounds of potatoes. I would not have called today a failure because today was about learning. Can you grow potatoes that way? Absolutely. Can you grow a massive amount of potatoes that way? I think you can. I just think I did it wrong. So I told you guys we'd bring you along with what we felt was good, what we felt was bad, and I told you guys you could come and learn along with us. So next year, we'll try it again in a different way. In the meantime, we'll eat these potatoes. These potatoes will actually, 70 pounds of potatoes will last us a long time. I don't exactly know how long. If you take 70 divided by maybe 35, maybe about 30-ish weeks, 35 weeks, something like that. I could see it lasting us. If we could, whatever, we'll put a bunch in can in. We just don't eat that many potatoes. But what we do eat, we want to grow ourselves. And so we got them all in the burlap sacks. We'll get them in storage. We'll eat on them through the year until they go rotten on us. And it'll be good, man. It'll be a good thing. Appreciate you guys watching. For more gardening tips, failures, conversations, trials and errors, stick along with us. And we'll catch you guys next time.